Pesachas Gittin Daf Samach Ches is devoted almost entirely to the story of Shlomo HaMelech and Ashmedai, how Shlomo HaMelech took control over and later lost control over Ashmedai, king of the Shadim. And this is brought here because we've been discussing the shade named Kordaikis. So Gemara, we begin a few lines into the Gemara after we've concluded our last story. So the Gemara begins with a pasuk where it says, Asisi Sarim, Asisi Sharim V'Sharais, V'sa Anugos B'nei Adam Shida V'Shidos, where Shlomo HaMelech says that I got all kinds of things, including Shida and Shidos. The Gemara says, what are Shida and Shidos, and what are Sharim and Sharos? So the Gemara says, Sharim and Sharos are different types of musical instruments. Ta'anugos B'nei Adam, that refers to pools and baths. Shida V'Shidos is male and female Shadim and Shidos. And in the West, they said it means different types of chariots that Shlomo HaMelech had been able to engineer specifically for his needs. So the Gemara says that Rav Yechanan says there are 300 different types of shadim in the town of Shichin, and I don't know what any of them look like. I don't know what any of them are. Now, back to the original discussion. So the Gemara says that Shida and Shidas are male and female shadim. So the Gemara says, why didn't Shlomo HaMelech need male and female shadim? So Gemara brings a story. It says, "V'abayis v'yibana soy even shalima masa nivna." Shlomo HaMelech built a Beis Hamikdash out of whole stones that were not cut with any instruments. How did he manage that? So he said to the Rabbanan, "How do I do this? How do I build a Beis Hamikdash without cutting any of the stones?" So the Chachamim say you use the shamir. Moshe Rabbeinu had a shamir which he used to cut the stones of the ephod to the right size. The shamir is a little tiny worm that you put it on anything and it splits. So you just have to get the shamir. So the Gemara said, "Well, where are we going to get the shamir?" So they said you have to ask the Shida and Shidos. You have to ask the male and female Shadim, and they will be able to tell you, but you're going to have to pressure them, and maybe they know where it is. So Shlomo went and brought a male and female Shade, and they said to him, we don't know, but Ashmedai, the king of the Shadim, he probably knows. So they said, where do we get Ashmedai? So I told him he lives in such and such mountain, and the way he works is as follows. He dug a well there, he filled it with water. The Mepharshim explained that this entire story is a mashal, and this is just referring to his supply, his own personal supply of life force. So he filled it with water, and he covered it with a stone, and he has it sealed with his own signature. And every day he goes up to Shemayim and he learns with the Yeshiva Shamayla. Then he goes down to earth and learns with Yeshiva Shabata. And then he gets tired and he comes home to drink, and he checks his seal, make sure that it wasn't fooled with. Opens it up, takes a drink, and then closes it, and then he leaves. So Shlomo sent Beniel ben Yehuda to capture Ashmedai. He gave him a chain which was engraved with the name of Hashem, and a ring which was engraved with the name of Hashem, and he took with him balls of wool and a couple of bottles of wine. So Beniel went to Ashmedai's home on the mountain, and he found, of course, it was deserted. He dug 2 pits in the slope, one above Ashmedai's well and one below it. So the one below drained all the water out, and then he stuffed up the path between them, and he kept it sealed. So now the Ashmedai's pit had been drained, even though it had not had the seal tampered with. And then in the pit above, he poured in wine. So he succeeded in filling Ashmedai's well with wine. Then he closed in the new pits, concealed his tracks, and went to sit in a tree and wait to see what would happen. So Ashmedai came, checked the seal, he found that it was intact, and he opened the pit and saw that it was full of wine. So he didn't think anybody laid a trap for him. He just thought, hey, look, a this happened, my water turned to wine. So he said, let's not drink the wine. And wine brings foolishness, and old wine brings madness. Anybody who trips over it is going to end up being stupid, so I'm not going to do that. It says, immorality, wine and fresh wine take the heart. So therefore he didn't want to drink the wine, but he got very thirsty, he couldn't resist, he drank the wine, got drunk, and fell asleep. But Yob ben Yehuda came down from the tree, put the chain with Hashem's name on it, around his neck, closed it. Ashmedai woke up and started thrashing around trying to free himself, and Ben Yehuda said, Shema Damar Chaloch, the name of your master is on you, and you can't escape. So Ben Yehuda then went to bring Ashmedai to Shlomo HaMelech. As they were traveling to Shlomo HaMelech and were walking along the way, a lot of interesting things happened. First of all, they came across a tree, and Ashmedai bumped into it and he knocked it down. They came to a house and he knocked that down too. Then they came to a little hut, and there was a widow who lived in the hut, and she came out and she said, please don't knock down my house, and please get out of the way. And Ashmanai twisted very sharply to get away, and he broke a bone in his body, and he said, as a drush on a pasuk, he said, Raka, Loshen Raka, Tishbar, Gareb, a soft tongue can break a bone. And that is, he was saying that the soft speech of the Almana caused him to turn away, and he broke his bow. Then Ashmanai saw a blind person, and he led him back to his way. He had lost his way. The Gemara is going to explain all these happenings later. Then he saw a drunkard, and he led him back to his way as well. He saw a wedding where there was a big simcha, and he cried. He saw a man telling a shoemaker, make me shoes that'll last for 7 years, and he laughed. And he saw somebody doing kishuf, doing magic, and he laughed at that guy also. And he came to Yerushalayim, and Benio did not bring Ashmanai to Shlomo Melech until the third day they were there. So the first day Ashmanai said, why don't you bring me to the king? So they said he drank too much. So Ashmanai took a brick and put it on top of another brick. So they told Shlomo what he did. So he said, he's telling you, give him more drink. The best way to get out of a hangover is to drink some more. The next day he wasn't brought to him, and they told him, he said, why doesn't the king answer me? He said, because he had too much food. So he took one brick off of the other brick. So they told Shlomo what he did, and they said, he's telling you, keep food away from him, that'll make him feel better. And finally, on the third day, Ashmanai came before Shlomo Melech. He took a reed, measured off 4 amos, put it in front of Shlomo, and he said, he said that person, but he meant you, in the end you're going to die, and all you're going to have in this world is 4 amos, the 4 amos that you inhabit. In the meantime, you conquered the entire world, but it's not enough for you that you conquered the entire world, you have to conquer me as well. So Shlomo said, I don't want anything for you for myself, for my covet, I want to build a base of English, and I need the Shamir. Ashmanai said, the Shamir is not with me. It wasn't trusted to me. It was given over to the master of the Yam, meaning it's a sea creature, and the master of the Yam gives it to the wild chicken, the wild rooster, and who he made swear that he would keep it away from humans, and it would return to him when he's finished with it. What does he do with it? Well, he lives in a place where nothing grows in the mountains, so he puts it on the top of the mountain, it cracks, and he puts in seeds from trees, he brings them there, and so it grows, and then it becomes a very vegetation-filled mountain, and he has what to eat. So the Gemara says, this is pshat, that the bird called a duchifas in the Torah, is the targum of it is nagar tura, the one that splits mountains. So that's the bird that we're referring to over here. Now, anyway, so they went and they found a wild chicken. They found a nest of this creature, and they wanted to induce it to bring the shamir. So they covered its nest where it had its children with glass. So the chicken came back and it saw the babies under the glass and tried to reach them, but it wasn't able to. So it went to bring the shamir, put it on the glass to break it, and then they shouted, they made a noise, and it dropped the shamir and ran away, and they picked it up, and they had taken possession of it. So the chicken saw that it had broken its promise to the master of the sea to return the shamir and not let it fall into the hands of humans, and therefore it went and it choked itself to death. So the Gemara now goes back to what happened with Ashmanai. So the Gemara says that Benayo asked Ashmanai, why did you do all those things along the way? So the first thing he asked him was, why did you bring the blind person back to his way, the one who had gotten lost? So Ashmanai said, because I heard in Shemayim that they said that this is a tzaddik, a gomer, whoever helps him is going to get a chelik and an haba, so I helped him. So then Benayo said, why did you help the drunk? He obviously was not a tzaddik gomer. So Ashmanai said that he was a rasha gomer, he was supposed to avoid getting any schar. In order to make sure that he didn't get any schar, I helped him here in this world so that he got some reward here, and then he lost whatever he had in the next world. He said, why did you cry about the wedding? He said, because I saw that the husband is going to die within 30 days, and the kala is going to have to wait 13 years for the yavam, for the husband's brother, to become an adult, because he's just born now, in order that she should get chalitza or yibum from him. So then he said, why did you laugh at the man who wanted shoes from the shoemaker that's going to last for 7 years? Ashmanai said, because he's only going to live for another 7 days, so he's not even going to live for another 7 days. Why does he want shoes that are going to last for 7 years? And the last question is, why did you laugh at the guy who was doing magic? So he said, because he was sitting on top of a treasure filled with gold and silver, and he's busy doing magic. If he's such a good magician, let him see what he's sitting on. And the Gemara continues what happened with Ashmanai and Shlomo Melech later. So the Gemara says that Shlomo held on to Ashmanai until they finished building the base of Mikdash, And then one day he was talking to him, the two of them were alone, and he said, "What's pshat in the pasuk Kisayafais Re'im Loi?" Where the Chazal explain that Sayafais refers to the Malchei Hasharis and Re'im refers to the Shadim. So the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to only the Malchei Hasharis and the Shadim. Why aren't people praised? Why isn't it a praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he's ruling over humans? What is so great about Shadim that you're greater than us? So Ashmadai said, if you take off this chain with Hashem's name on it, and you give me your ring with Hashem's name on it, so then I'll show you. So Shlomo Melech listened to him, he took off the chain, took off the ring, gave it to him, and Ashmadai swallowed, Machlekes here, if he swallowed him or if he swallowed the ring, and he threw Shlomo Melech 400 parsa, which is always Chazal expression for outside of Eretz Yisrael in the entire sphere of Kedusha. So on that, it said that Shlomo said, "My Yisrael la'adam v'chalamalei sheyamal tachas hashamesh." What I get after all my work, Shlomo Melech worked so hard to build the Beis Hamikdash, to build Yerushalayim, and then he ended up out in the middle of nowhere. He also said, "V'zohi yachalki min kol amali," and this is all that was left for me from all that I did. Now, what happened with him in the end? Rav and Shmuel have machlokes about it, whether he's referring to his stick or his cloak. Now, what happened with Shlomo Melech afterwards? So the Gemara says that Shlomo went around from door to door. He was asking for food in order to be able to survive. He was thrown literally with nothing. Whenever he went, he said, "Ani kahelas isi melech al Yisrael b'Yerushalayim." First pasuk in the kahelas, he was saying that I am Shlomo Melech, and of course everybody thought he was insane. Until he finally came to Yerushalayim and came to the Sanhedrin, and he said the same thing. And the Rabbanim of the Sanhedrin said that usually a deranged person doesn't just keep repeating the same thing. Usually has a bunch of different nonsense that he says. So what's pshat? That this person seems to be sticking to the same story. So he said, let's check it out. So they checked with what was happening with Shlomo HaMelech, the imposter. So they figured if it was really Ashmadai who was pretending to be Shlomo HaMelech, he wouldn't dare talk to Beniel ben Yehoyada, who knew who he was, who had conquered him in the past. So he said to Beniel ben Yehoyada, has the king asked to talk to you recently? So he said, no, he hasn't spoken to me in a long time. So then they sent to talk to the queens, to Shlomo Melech's wives, and they said, what's the story with you? So he said, yeah, the king has been visiting, he's been calling for them, but it's a little strange. So they asked, have you seen his feet? So he said, no, he always wears his socks. Also, he often calls women, even though they are a nida, and he even calls Basheva, who is his own mother. So these are a little odd. So then they realized that it was Ashmadai, and they restored Shlomo Melech by giving him a ring with the name of Hashem and a chain with the name of Hashem. He gave it to Shlomo Melech. Shlomo Melech entered his throne room, and as soon as Ashmadai saw him, he ran away in fear. The Gemara says that Shlomo Melech lived the rest of his life still in fear of Ashmadai, and that's pshat in the pasuk where it says, "Hina me'tasuk shel Shlomo shishim geber mesavel megabar Yisrael." Shlomo Melech's bed has 60 of the strongest warriors of Yisrael encircling it, all of them with the sword and skilled in warfare because of terror at night. And there's machlokes whether Shlomo returned to his original madrega. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. One calls him a melech and a hedyot. He was originally a king and then he became a commoner. And the other one says he was a melech, then he was a hedyot, and then he went back to being a king again.